It's time to explore the world according to Glenn. I'm Kevin Jacobsen. Glenn Close is my favorite actress, and this show is all about exploring the career of one of the finest actors of her generation. Each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we dive into one of Glenn's movies, TV shows, or stage productions, going chronologically through her career, discussing her performance, and assessing the project itself. And today we're talking Glenn's performances in the sci-fi action dramas The Girl with All the Gifts and What Happened to Monday.
Eight-time nominee Glenn Close, motherfuckers.
My guest today is joining me for the first time on The World According to Glenn, but is no stranger to podcasting with me, having joined me on And the Runner-Up Is and various bonus series over the years. Editor at Next Best Picture. She is, you could say, the girl with all the gifts. Welcome, Lauren LaMagna.
Oh, you're so sweet. Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to have you on for this. And I'm so excited to hear your relationship to Glenn Close. So before we talk about her in these two big, sci-fi adventures, need to know your relationship first. So when did you first encounter Glenn in your film watching? What do you like about her? And what's your favorite performance of hers?
I feel so unqualified having this conversation with you.
Okay.
But it's like, how do I step up to the plate here? But
Okay.
as a child of the 90s and grew up in the 2000s, Cruella de Vil was, I think, the big one. So everything about the campiness of it and the villainous of it, she was evil, but there was also something fun about her, which
Yeah.
is such a prominent thing with those Disney movies. So I always took that villain, that fun villain type with her. And as I got older and started to learn more about what film is, I got to all the big ones. My father is my film professor, so he showed us Dangerous Liaison and Fatal Attraction and all the big ones. So I was like, oh yeah, she definitely is, that fun villain. She's
Mm-hmm.
thrives in that area of that authority figure that kind of doesn't care that we're going to hurt people in the process, but we're going to have fun and look good while doing it. Um,
Always.
so there was always a fun thing about her, and I think there's something about her piercing blue eyes that always gets me too, where there's
Mm.
something behind her where we're gonna mess things up and be a little bad and have fun while doing it. So I always enjoyed that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I found her, and that's kind of where she lives with me, these fun villain roles and these fun, let's be bad and have fun while doing it. I mean, as you know, that's my favorite type of player in Survivor. Let's just be bad and let's have fun and let's play the
That's
game.
true.
And that's, I think, the roles that she thrives in. So I
Mm-hmm.
love those. And I have to say, can you top Dangerous Liaison with her? It's just a good, let's just get stuff done. It is chaotic good or lawfully neutral. I don't care what happens. I'm gonna win.
Right.
And that's okay. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
happens, happens as long as I win.
Yeah. I, in my delusional mind, have thought a few times about various Glenn characters on Survivor specifically. And being like, oh my God, the Marquise de Mertoy and Dangerous Liaison would
A
just,
lot of them would do good.
yeah. Alex
Yeah,
Forrest, even, who knows? She has a mind for this sort of thing, I
they
think, for
do.
manipulation, you could say. So maybe use it for some good and win $1 million in the process. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I love that. Love that. Love that. The winking devil, you could say.
Oh,
Always,
yes.
always a treat, especially from women. So yeah.
It's just fun to watch a woman get what she wants and
Mm-hmm.
disobey
Yeah.
rules of society and life of, what it is and and especially when she gets away with it because that happens in some of her movies.
Yeah.
I love when they're aware of it and it's not oh, I have to do it. Her characters usually want to do it.
Yeah.
Just so much more juicy, and she really does thrive in those types of roles throughout her entire filmography, not just when she was younger,
Yeah.
even now where she's like, I see what I want. I know how to get it, and I'm gonna try to get it. And I'm just like, yes, girl, go. Like, how can you root against that?
Yeah, unapologetic and not caring what others think, especially like even the audience. Like she loves to play the villain who gets a strong reaction out of people. So I love that. Great answer. Love that.
Thank you.
And actually, today we are in fact talking about two films in which she is kind of fulfilling that type of role and two specific sci-fi films. So I knew I had to have you on for this because you are my sci-fi expert of choice. So we are going to start first with The Girl with All the Gifts. So this began with M.R. Carey, who wrote a short story called Iphigenia in Aulis, which he then adapted to a sci-fi novel called The Girl with All the Gifts, and it was written concurrently with a film adaptation also by M.R. Carey. The novel was published in 2014, and then the film went into production shortly thereafter. It's set in a post-apocalyptic world in which humanity has been largely decimated by the spread of a parasitic fungus that turns the infected into zombies, which in this are called hungries, behaving largely as zombies do, except they also move quicker than your average zombie. And the story largely centers on this young girl named Melanie, whose genetic DNA is the potential key to the future of humanity. It's sort of like The Last of Us, you could say, kind of a similar concept of Ellie with that whole thing. And so while the book bounces between multiple perspectives, including Melanie's, the film streamlines it to just being through her perspective. So Colm McCarthy is the director here, a Scottish director who had mostly done TV like Sherlock and Peaky Blinders before this, but had also made a low-budget horror movie called Outcast in 2010. So for casting, he found Senia Nanua to play the lead role of Melanie. This was her first feature film, and they wanted to get a naturalistic performance for this role and surround her with more familiar names, including Glenn. There is a bit of a funny story behind Glenn's casting, which Colm McCarthy recalled in an interview. He actually said, Glenn's agent responded to the script saying, it's a good script, but it's a zombie film. I'm not sure Glenn's going to be into that. Then Glenn read it, and she loved it. So there you have it. Once again, a case of agents potentially getting in the way of someone being in a cool movie. So, yeah. Other bigger names were Gemma Arterton and Patty Considine. So the film is set in the near future. Like I said, parasitic fungus has ravaged the world and turned most of Earth's inhabitants into hungries. And we meet Melanie, a girl at a facility who goes through schooling alongside others who are like her. We come to find out she and her classmates are neonates who have traits of both humans and hungries, prone to uncontrollable biting when provoked. So they're met with scorn by the guards at the facility. But Gemma Arterton plays Helen Justineau, a teacher who treats Melanie and her classmates with compassion. Patty Considine is Sergeant Eddie Parks, the head of security at the facility, and Glenn is Caroline Caldwell, a doctor who is carefully studying the neonates in the hope of developing some sort of cure or vaccine for humanity, and is much colder and more dispassionate compared to Helen. So one day after Caldwell puts Melanie under observation, a massive group of hungries infiltrates the facility, leading to a series of chaotic events with Melanie, Helen, Sergeant Parks, and Dr. Caldwell all escaping on the same truck and subsequently trying to survive in the outside world. So, yeah, that's a little summary for you. But Lauren, I know you have seen The Girl with All the Gifts before this, so I'm curious what your experience was with watching this movie then and now, and your thoughts on Glenn here.
Yeah, I saw this a while back. I don't think I saw it in the theaters, but
Mm-hmm.
as people who have listened to me on podcasts know, I am a certified scaredy cat. Anything that involves like dismemberment of bodies or
Mm,
things that move or loud noises, I don't find that viewing experience to be entertaining or it's not calming to me. My life is already stressful. I don't seek it out. But
sure.
I respect everyone who loves it and I'm slowly getting better at it. So I was scared of this movie and I still have issues with the pacing of it. I know now, like in today's world, it's going to get a lot of Last of Us comparisons, especially because it is a fungus, it is the cordyceps, it's the exact same one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a similar like parent-child relationship that's forming, but I think this story may have worked better as a limited series or just had more time because we're just going somewhere and then a character makes a sudden decision and then the movie kind of just ends. But as I've watched it now with like I've seen The Last of Us, I know what to expect now kind of. I love the concept of this idea because we've seen a lot of zombie things like throughout the years. We haven't seen a lot of, what hybrids might look like or how it might advance the disease into a second generation, which is what the story kind of is about, how diseases grow and mutate and evolve to fit whatever it has to do. And the idea of the world changing for a new generation and what does that mean for the people who were most affected and kind of looking at that new generation. I love that concept. It kind of reminds me of it's another movie that I think Gemma Arterton was in, actually. It's based off a play. I forget the movie's name, but it's called A Vampire Story,
Hmm.
which is about two vampires who actually, before they were vampires, were a mother and daughter. So the mother was a vampire and then turned her daughter into one. So they're family, but now they're also like the maker and the makey. So the bond is much stronger. And you see how vulnerable the child vampire is. And you kind of see this child zombie or this hybrid of a character be vulnerable because she is so small, but also completely feared and totally not understood by herself or by the scientists because she's just this new species essentially. So I loved that dynamic going into it, and I just wish we spent more time on, the world and what she means and how does, Gemma Arterton's character kind of feel with that because we never really get her side of it.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I love the concept in the world. I just wish we spent more time with it. And Glenn is just great here. She kind of these two characters that we're talking about,
Mm.
they're kind of in the same world but on different ends of the spectrum.
Right.
I love what she's doing here. She's that, that hardcore scientist that's very stone cold on what she wants to do, and you totally understand why she's doing it and what she believes in. And as the human audience, you're like, I totally get it. She wants to save the world and she thinks she can and she knows she can and it's that moral dilemma like what does it mean to be a person, which is the fun question that sci-fi does. And that's the
Yeah.
theme right there with that character. So I
Hmm.
love it. I think it's a great character that she plays.
Yes, I agree. And this for me was a pleasant surprise. I had heard mixed reviews about this movie. For me, zombie sci fi can be very hit or miss, where it's sometimes, I don't want to be too pejorative about it, but it feels like once you've seen a few zombie movies, you've kind of seen a lot of them to some degree,
You're right. Yeah.
and there's not a lot of I don't know. There's not a lot of intrigue about a zombie for me compared to like a vampire or even like a slasher of like some
Hmm.
kind of like psychopath type of thing. Maybe it's just the brain dead part of it where it's sort of like,
Yeah,
you
you're
can
like
get,
they're dead, they're sick. I get
yeah,
it. There's
right.
only so many ways you can do with
There's
it.
not a lot of layers, I suppose, with that. But I just don't always feel super engaged, I guess. But there are movies and shows that attempt to do more with it, like The Last of Us, like, the 28 Days Later series, I think. But they're usually not my thing. So watching this, I wasn't expecting something that would really linger all that much, but this one for me really has. I do think the world building is very well thought out. I think the color scheme, even like the performances, it is a pretty high class production. And then on a thematic level, I did really respond to how it's really trying to tackle these ideas of morality and ethics in an environment like this. Like, how do we as a species treat those who we are deeming not equal to ourselves? Essentially, it's like, is compassion and humanizing them the best path forward if all we're going to do is experiment on them? Is it better to just dehumanize so you're not getting all that attached? And also, like, are these young kids really like us? And are they human at all? Or are they just trying to trick us in a sense? It's
And how do we deal with a species that may be more advanced than us or stronger than
yes,
us? Like
right.
how does that, if we're not on the top of the food chain anymore, how are we gonna not survive that, but deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Yeah.
big question for them.
Right. It's all very fascinating to me. And I think the film does a lot with those kind of debates that the characters have on like what to do about Melanie and even Melanie's own realization of who she is alongside that without making that feel too much like clunky sort of exposition or trying so hard to shoehorn in the themes. It feels like it's presenting these obstacles that naturally lead to those kinds of debates and discussions, if that makes sense. So I really like that about it.
Yeah, it's fun. And I think the introduction to like when the zombie like situation happens, I love when they're like closing the doors and you just see one coming. And that whole sequence of the attack of Melanie being kind of like sedated a little bit and not being able to be her true self. But then when she
Mm,
actually starts to, be zombie-like and starts attacking people just to get to the person who she wants to, who's her teacher,
mm,
that's a great sequence when everything is just falling apart and we don't know where we're going. You really feel like you're in the middle of a battlefield, which
yeah,
is great for something that is not fully indie, but like a small movie.
right.
I do wish we had more time, figuring out other characters' POV because we're with that
Yeah,
group a lot
I agree.
and we're trying to get somewhere to like more civilization, but just not enough time with each character to learn
Hmm.
people's point of view. Besides Glenn's character, we know exactly what she wants to do. We know that she has like a time clock on her and we know what needs to happen. And she does give us great information about what's at stake because we know it's not the beginning of the end of the apocalypse. We're kind of at the end of it where these creatures are overpowering, they're actually evolving, things are changing, and we can't really fix it. There's only like one more step until we are just screwed. So
Mm,
you really feel the pressure of that. But
yeah.
yeah, love those ideas. Love the sequences of it. Wish there was just more time. So maybe like I think this movie's like a little under 2 hours,
Hmm.
which is like a healthy number, but I think we could do like 6 episodes and just like really work into it, which is probably why The Last of Us was better as a game and better as a TV show.
Mm,
But
right. That's
it's a
I
fun concept.
Yeah. I'm glad you said this because I did find myself watching the film being like, well, obviously I'm focusing on Glenn because this is through the lens of talking about a Glenn performance. And then I was like, hold on, was I kind of like not paying attention with Gemma Arterton and what she's going through?
That was like my main issue when I first saw it because
Yeah.
I'm like, they just screwed this girl over. Like, what do
Yeah.
we like? And we don't really know. We have this one scene with her where she's talks about how Melanie idolizes her and
Right.
just loves her, and she doesn't know how she feels about that because we know Melanie is obviously like she loves this teacher. She is like imprinting on her as like a parental figure. But we don't know how Gemma Arterton's character is receptive of that. We know she cares about her because she's a loving person,
Yeah.
but we don't know the pressure and like the stress of having like this creature be imprinted, which is why I'm bringing that movie about the child vampire because of it's like this dangerous instinctual situation.
Right.
So when the end happens, there's like this great scene of her like in the mirror, and Gemma Arterton plays it well because you see how terrified she is because of the creature that Melanie is. So like there is this confliction of like I know she's a good kid, but also she's rooting for my species end.
Right.
So it's just like a really tough give and take that Arterton does really well, but I just wish there was more time on that character
I
and
agree.
that character relationship in general. Because that was my first thing when the movie ended. I was like, I thought you loved her, but now you're kind of like, she's just gonna sit in a box till the end of her days.
Yeah. That's why that's the main flaw here. I completely agree is that that relationship kind of feels like the key ultimately since that is what we are ending in is essentially her compassion for Melanie kind of winning out in the end, even though she does, as you said, feel conflicted about all this because now she's just going to be in a box. But you kind of wish you had more of a personal investment in that relationship.
Which like sucks, but that's why like I think the screen there's just so much going on because we have to
Yeah,
establish what
there
these
is.
guys are, why these kids are being locked up, then the world goes to shit. and now we're on a journey, and now we're introducing what's going to happen to the world. Like
Yeah, and it's very episodic.
there's
Yeah.
so much going on where 2 hours is a lot, where I'm interested in the novel and how that
Yeah.
switches. You know, what can be done in 300 pages is so different than what can be done in 2 hours visually. So those themes might be, and that relationship itself might be more fleshed out, especially if there's multiple POVs.
I'm sure it
But that's
is.
just part of adaptation, and you have to figure out what works and what doesn't work in the medium that you're adapting into.
Yeah.
And not that this is a bad adaptation, this is a great concept and a good film, and it's something that I would like recommend to people who enjoy zombies and the genre because it's different. We don't see, what happens to like fetus that are infected and what can happen to them,
Right.
but which is a good idea. There's just there is more to the story that wasn't put into it,
There
which
is.
is just unfortunate a little bit, but it's still an entertaining film.
And I think today they would probably make this a limited series,
Maybe,
like no
yeah.
question. And especially with the multiple perspectives, you could just have each episode be
hmm
have their own perspective for each character very easily.
Yeah.
So,
Easy. HBO
yeah.
would love it.
Oh yes, yes. But with Glenn, I was shook. I think this is really stunning work from her. And I can't say I was expecting that either because no one I knew had really talked about this as being like a very good performance from hers. And she easily could have phoned this in, I think, to a certain degree. And it could have just been like the functional sort of antagonist character, which I think the other film we're talking about today is a little more guilty of that. But with this, like Caldwell is like a real character with an arc. And
hmm
this is like I had to look again. This is the most that she's had to do in a film in quite some time at this point in her career.
No, like
Like
she's in the movie. Like
she's
we're gonna talk about the other
yeah.
one, but not so much in the movie. Like this
No.
is like she's part of the pact. She
Yeah.
has a great section, and her whole idea is not only to save the world, but is Melanie a person? Can she feel?
Right.
Can she empathize? It kind of reminds me of Never Let Me Go, which is like a
Ugh.
great novel,
Yes.
great film about
Adore
a
it.
similar concept of
Mm-hmm.
do these people who are different have a soul? Like, what are they? And she's doing that while also trying to find the cure and save the world. And
Yeah.
it's great to watch those scenes where she's trying to talk to Melanie, where you also see her like probing her and collecting data and trying to like understand what this thing is. Like she doesn't call her, or she sometimes will call her Melanie, but when we're talking to other people, it's an it's a subject.
Right.
And I think you can see those layers, like trying to be friendly to the girl, but also be the scientist and be the person who's trying to figure out who she is and what she means and what does that mean for humans.
Yeah. Right. You see how even though she is meant to be like the more cold-hearted scientist type who is very clinical, she does still have that underlying humanity that she clings onto. And even as she maybe justifies certain actions taken against these young neonates by just like, this is just for the good of humanity, no matter how brutal the cost. I think it's interesting how she doesn't revel in any of that by any means. And they don't make her sound delusional or even all that villainous. Like, yes, she is an antagonist in a sense, but she never thinks of herself as that. And she
No,
believes
yeah.
what she's doing is a necessary evil of sorts. And she's motivated by that single, like almost narrow minded, you could say, desire to bring humanity back to what it was. And she believes with her full chest that this is how to do it.
Yeah, it's that debate of like, will you sacrifice one to save the many? Like,
Exactly.
what are you gonna do? And it's that scene with Gemma Arterton when she's trying to break out Melanie in the beginning, and she's like, I understand what you're feeling. I respect
Yep.
it. I
I've been
so
there.
get it.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm doing because of X, Y, and Z. And the way she's able to so like clinically understand it, like she's reading that from like a training course, or like that's just something that she's been saying as a physician, as a scientist. Like, I understand what the human nervous system and like our system is making us do. We are people who love, we are people who make social connections, but
Mm,
this is different and I need this in order to help us. And I love how she was able to like pragmatically try to explain that to this woman in distress because she cares about this child and she's like, they're not
yeah.
children. It just looks like a child. Like, don't think about it like that.
Right.
and you see her trying to like desensitize Gemma Arterton's character from this situation, which is it looks horrible. Like she's dissecting children and trying to figure out what's going on with them, which from a normal blunt perspective, not good. We don't like it. But the
Don't
more you
approve.
think about it, she gets it. She goes, if I could get a cure from these guys, if I could study them to help quote unquote normal people and true humans, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna not let their kind continue.
Right. Yeah, but she also starts to miss the forest for the trees, I think, over time, because I think she's failing to recognize what we are ultimately leading up to in the film, which is that these neonates are essentially like the new normal, that they are, in a sense, like the next evolutionary step of humanity to some degree. And her quickness to just like deny even entertaining these kids as equals is kind of her downfall ultimately. And I think Glenn plays with that with a lot of complexity in the way she kind of winces at times, in just the steeliness of how she stares, very physical performance in that sense, and in just how she speaks to other humans versus how she speaks with Melanie, you know? But there's always something going on behind those eyes that is motivated by that one goal, which I love from her. There's always something going on.
Always something. She's always like two steps ahead, even when she's given lines that are for exposition, like when she's talking about the spores and what's going on next, like you see her educating us, but you also see her going, and this is why I have to do what I have to do.
Yeah,
And I have to do it fast, like just because this is happening and I know what's going on. And but she's also still like collecting data and she's still trying to
hmm,
figure out how can I beat them?
right.
You know, like it's
That's the thing.
still Darwinism, like throwing things at the wall and seeing who sticks. And she's like, I need to make sure I beat them. Like I'm not gonna be, she knows she can't be like them, like she can't evolve to them. And she needs to beat them.
Hmm. And another thing I wanted to talk about too is that like it is a surprisingly physical performance from Glenn in a way that we very rarely had seen by that point in her career. Like the scene you mentioned before of when uh Helen, the Gemma Arterton character, comes in and tries to kind of reason with her. It gets to a point where it's just like, she's like, what you're feeling, I respect it, but I cannot afford it. And gets her to put down her little fire extinguisher that she's been wielding, that she busted in with. But then Glenn straight up like maces her, which made me have an audible reaction, I will say. Um,
And even the scene where I think Helen like hits her, she goes, "Was that vindicated? Like, does that make you feel
right.
better?" Like, it was just like she
Yes.
goes, "I know I'm the bad guy to you, but like this is what I
Hmm.
have to say." And she was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it does actually." Like, you're like,
You know
think,
what?
okay,
Yeah.
cool, yeah.
Yeah. But things go from bad to worse from there, with like this horde of the hungries that are breaking into the facility and trying to bite her. The violence with which Glenn then like stabs at that one zombie is very visceral. I've never seen her do anything like that by that point in her career, but it's like so intense, and the seriousness with which she brings to it is just like, I have one goal. It's almost like Terminator-esque
Yeah.
in a sense of just like, I have to just like kill this thing immediately. No thoughts.
And there was no panic there. She just
Yes,
switched
very
into that
efficient.
mode,
Hmm.
like it was so like simple and easy and she let Melanie go. And even when they're on the ground, like she's giving directions, like she knows it's like she's been here before and she's not so phased by it. Where
Right,
she's like, okay, this is where we have to go, this is what we have to do. Don't do this, which is great to have, a person of science on your expedition who is an expert in the enemy. But yeah, there is like a calmness to her
hmm.
where it does make her dangerous and makes her, I bet fun to play that she has
Oh
all
yeah.
these different motives where she is obviously scared, but she is very skilled in what she knows and she's not phased by it. Like nothing is surprising to her, or most of the stuff isn't surprising to her.
Right.
And things that are surprising to her are fascinating to her and intriguing and kind of attractive. So like there's a fun thing that's going on with her where she wants to do something so badly, but she's also really interested in everything else.
Yeah. And I think also a good example of that is after they've all gone out on the truck, they've escaped from this horde of zombies, and they then stumble into this other hole horde of them in the city, I think it is, where she notices this like mother hungry zombie like pushing a stroller, which she's scared might be like a baby zombie maybe or something. So she like peeks into the stroller and it kind of disrupts everything and leads to this whole chaotic scene, which they're able to escape, but the Patty Considine character is naturally kind of pissed off at her for doing all of this.
Hmm.
And she just kind of is very, again, sort of clinical with how she speaks about how, like, I've never seen, maternal or nurturing behavior in a hungry. I was gathering data, which is part of our mission statement. It's like so by the book. And
It's
he's
like,
just
you
like, well, our mission
idiot.
statement is like
Yeah.
to survive. So that's where we're
Like,
at
what are you
now.
gonna do with that information when we're dead? Like, what is you like? It's
Exactly.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how she's just always interested and curious about an environment that is so deadly and fatal and a place you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about her. Like all the other characters are, obviously terrified, and she has this intriguing look about her where she's not scared of them. It is, a scientist looking at subjects, and she's not oblivious, but she's kind of ignoring the fact that they're dangerous and that they can hurt her because she
Yeah.
thinks she can handle it no matter what, which I think is her flaw. Like she thinks she can outsmart them and she
Mm-hmm.
can outplay them. But at the end of the day, when she meets her match and she sees that these other tribes have outsmarted her and they were just in a world that's not for you anymore, that's just a deal breaker for her. She just kind of gives up, which is a little sad. Like I wish there was a little bit more fighting. I love the
Right.
scene with her and Melanie like talking about the ethics of it and
Mm.
trying to pick which side you are on. But I don't I wish there was just more to it where it was then she just like gives in because that just seems a little out of character. But
Mm-hmm. I think by that point, isn't she just fully dying?
she's on her way out, man. She
Yeah.
really is. Like there's
Mm.
we got some poisoning
To
going
be
on.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like she would be interested in that little
Yeah.
tribe of kids who
True.
have like they have a language, they have a communication system, they have relationships, obviously, and this is, obviously the next step. And Melanie is more advanced. Is she more advanced because she's had, human interaction and, a structured environment? Probably. But I feel like that would be interesting to her. Maybe she could get one of these kids, or just try to
Yeah.
do stuff. But no, she just accepts her fate, which is interesting that someone who's been fighting the whole film would just go
Give in.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I do want to just talk about one other, I think, great scene for her too, which is when she's explaining to Melanie her origin, essentially, which is that she and others like her were found at this maternity hospital where the mothers were found like emptied out, essentially, like eaten by their unborn children, but they can still process and think like humans while still being half infected. It's very unsettling just the way she even explains all this. Like she delivers this largely just exposition with so much gravity and like a gravitas as if she's almost like telling a ghost story.
Yeah, because you're like, she wants Melanie to be afraid of who she is. Because she's like,
Yes.
there's the motive of this story is, yes, exposition, but for the character point of view, we want Melanie to still be on our side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's like scary when she finds this other tribe of kids and like sees that there's more of her and she's not this like anomaly. You see her trying to convince her there's this evil part of you and that's bad, and we are the
Yeah.
good guys and see how we can keep civilization good and great and these guys can't have relationships and you're this weird in between and don't you want to be on our side, embrace the good part of you.
Right.
And you see, that persuasive tics coming through in that performance, which is really great. And it works because as soon as she like says, she goes, I don't want to be hungry. And she was like, you can make a choice as to who you want to fight for,
Mm-hmm.
which works for a majority of the movie. She is happily, working with these groups of adults. And for most part of the film, like she wants the safety of them. She wants them to keep being them. So it works where it's terrifying for us, and she's terrified of what she did and terrified of the nature of who she is, which is a horrible thing to do as an adult, but as like a scientist, who is fighting for your survival and not their survival. Completely efficient. So I love
Yeah.
that scene because of
Right.
those little tricks that she's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why the film really works thematically for me is that you just have certain layers of fear and survival. You have these zombies, these hungries who are an immediate threat, but then with Caldwell, there's like this veneer of respectability, you could say, there of like being the more civilized and wanting to test Melanie and the others like her and ultimately sacrifice them and dehumanize them. There's like that existential threat there too, which I just think all of that is very primal. Like I did find myself kind of on edge for a lot of the film of feeling like what is actually going to happen to these characters. Like at this point, is this the kind of film that really does end with the end of the world essentially? Like it does make you feel like this is not a controllable situation in the end.
Yeah, and what does the end of the world mean? And
Yeah,
it's also like a
true.
great conversation of, what is the world that we're giving to our children? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the meat of it. Are we trying to save a world that's for us, that's going to end up hurting the next generation? Or are we going to work for a world that's sustainable for our children and for the next generation? Because things
Yeah,
change. And that's like a fun conversation and analogy to put for this film. Like, what does it mean as adults who
mm-hmm.
are trying to stay at the top, which means the younger generation has to suffer because of it.
Right,
So what does it mean? Like, what's the right thing to do? And that's a fun conversation. That's what was great about the confrontation scene with her and Melanie, where she goes, "Why
yeah,
do I have to die for you to live?
right,
How is that fair?" Because now she sees she can thrive in this world. She's
mm-hmm.
being who she is, and she likes that. She's starting that journey of self-actualization, which is the great part of science fiction. And she's realizing who she is and what she is, and she likes it. And she's realizing, why do I have to suppress myself and hurt myself in order
Mm-hmm.
for you to be the best version of you?
Yeah, that's all fair. Fair
Yeah.
point. Yeah. And yeah, I love that scene too. Glenn is incredible in that
Yeah.
final confrontation of kind of being like the fate of the world is in my hands. And she
And
knows
we
she's
had
dying.
30 minutes to do it. It's
Yes, time
just,
is of the essence.
yes.
Yeah. And Melanie, yeah, she's realizing like, no, I'm alive just like you. Right. So that's where Melanie ultimately leaves the building and Caldwell chases her out, only to be surrounded by all these like feral zombie children, which I have to say it did remind me of a certain movie that came out last year. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but I did think a little bit of Aunt Gladys in Weapons in
No,
her
they're
ultimate
fun.
fate. Yeah, you know? And it did make me think of how Glenn could play Aunt Gladys, but that's a whole other story,
Listen,
you know?
they want to do a prequel. Is that what's happening?
Yes, they do.
So there's a family out there.
That's true. Yeah.
Whole thing of witches.
Mm-hmm. I like where you're going with that.
I
Yes.
got you.
Yeah. But what did you think ultimately of the ending here? Because it is quite a subversion, I think.
It just ends. I
Yeah.
wish, again, this is what I think the book might do better at, which is figuring out why Melanie just suddenly flips of not only do I want to like save myself, but like I want to just destroy the world, destroy all of humanity to
Yeah.
let us go, especially if she loves some humans so much. Those like that's the thing. It's the relationship between Helen and Melanie that starts off the movie and is supposed to be the through line of the movie. I don't want to compare it to The Last of Us so much because they are so similar and this did come out first. But the relationship between Ellie and Joel in The Last of Us is so strong where we understand why Joel snaps and why Ellie wants to do what she wants to do because that
Yeah.
relationship is so strong. I just wish we learned more about Melanie's decision to not just be free from humans, but to just end them.
Yeah.
Can we find a happy medium? That's like an interesting question
Mm-hmm.
about the question that I just posed of, how does each generation protect our world for the other ones? Like who gets to be on top? There's the hierarchy of humans within the generations, and can the old and the young and the in-between all exist as one? That's a great question. Filmmakers here say no, but it would be interesting to have maybe Melanie and Helen discuss it together or try to work on something together because she just gets knocked out and then wakes up, with the
Right.
world is taken without her agency or without her consent. She's kind of a victim now. She is an inferior where she might not see herself as a victim. I think she does, or a prisoner where she has to comply with these kids. She has to comply with Melanie because if not, what's going to happen to her?
Yeah.
Like there's no fate for her. She kind of like stilled her death. It's like Jennifer Lawrence in Passengers with Chris Pratt. Like you're a little screwed,
God.
girl. But
Yeah.
so that's like my main gripe that it just
Mm.
ends and we kind of forget about that relationship and poor Helen is lost and alone and stuck with all these kids. I work with children. I love these kids so much, but do I want to be their prisoner a little bit for 24 hours a day for the rest of my life? I don't think so. I love sending them home, but that's my one gripe with it that it just ends and just switches.
You don't just want to stay in a box and like teach these feral children from afar.
Forever. And don't mess them up. You got to give them the
Never.
sticker every day. Read them the
Yeah.
story. Read the
Right.
Odyssey. And it's just
Right.
all
Yeah.
the
It's
Greeks.
tough. Yep. Yep. Well, I did sort of understand a little bit what the film was going for in the sense that it felt like a bookend moment from comparing it to the beginning of the film, where Melanie is very much a prisoner and doesn't really have much agency in anything. And now the roles have reversed here, and it's sort of like the meek shall inherit the earth, in a sense, is kind of what I was getting from this. Obviously, it's a very different story in the fact that like these kids are like genuine threats, and like this woman can't even go outside, so somehow it feels worse than it was before, obviously. But I sort of could understand the idea behind it, even though it doesn't really get fleshed out for me. And I
Yeah,
just
like I
wish
get it.
Helen and Melanie should have had a conversation after
I always feel so
the
bad
one with
for
Caldwell.
Helen at the end of this movie. Like, I know that's
Yeah.
not the intended thing where, like, okay, now the world's gonna reinvent itself and the hybrids are gonna thrive. And I'm like, okay, but what about Helen, who vouched
Yeah.
for this kid the whole movie and vouched for these people and had faith? Like, she just got totally screwed over, this character. And
Right.
Gemma Arterton does so well with what she's given, but I
Yeah.
always feel so bad for this character who is like ultimately screwed
Mm-hmm.
for everything. So I wish there was more of her in the third act to see
Right.
what she thinks again, because we know even in the beginning we don't know how she feels about being idolized by
Mm-hmm.
these kids or by Melanie, who's just she likes them and loves them because that's her job. Yeah, but I think it's just the result of being the one person who shows them compassion.
Right.
Does she
Exactly.
have a life outside of her job, which, it is just a job at the end of
We
the
never
day.
know.
So,
Yeah.
and we never know, which is
Yeah.
frustrating for that character.
Yeah. I don't know if things are missing that were on the cutting room floor here, but it really does feel like we've just kind of let all the air out by the end of who Helen is and what she
Yeah.
represents. But anyway, yeah,
I bet
she
she's
gets
having
to,
a good time teaching
she gets to
history.
live,
She
but
gets to
to what
live. That's
end?
good enough.
To what end? Yes.
hmm
She's in a prison, essentially, a glass
Yeah.
prison. So bleak, but had fun watching this Glenn performance. I love how much she got to do here, and I do recommend it to Glenn fans out there who may not have seen this or may not have given it a chance.
No, yeah, it's a fun one. Again, I love this concept.
Yeah,
We don't see it a lot or if ever.
yeah,
And I love it. It's a great conversation starter for
yeah, for
the
sure.
fun sci-fi questions of what do we do in this situation and what do we do when things advance. So yeah, it's a cool concept. I love it.
Yeah, glad you got to revisit it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
thanks. Yes.
No problem. I think it's time, unless you had any other things you wanted to mention, to move on to our other film today, shall we?
We shall.
All right. What happened to Monday? Everyone wants to know what happened to Monday. What happened to Monday started out as a hot script on the Hollywood Blacklist, which, for those who don't know, is a list of the most liked unproduced screenplays in Hollywood, as surveyed by development executives. So the script centers on a group of 7 identical twins who try to avoid detection in this dystopian society that has a strict one-child policy. So the director Morton Tildum originally wanted to direct the film after reading the script, but he ultimately passed on it to do The Imitation Game, which I guess you could say worked out for him. He got an Oscar
That's
nomination for that, you know,
respectable choice.
right? But
Hmm.
it then went to Tommy Wirkola, who mostly worked in the horror, thriller, sci-fi space with such films as Dead Snow and Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. But he made a big switch because the screenplay was originally written to star a man in the lead role as the septuplets, but Tommy Wirkola said he really wanted to work with Noomi Rapace, whom he had known for a long time, and that led to them switching to it being about 7 female identical twins. And then Glenn, of course, was cast to play the villain here, Nicolette Kamen, who is the head of the Child Allocation Bureau, which is in charge of laying down the law about this one-child policy. So, just really quickly before we get into a summary, Glenn really thought very intently about her role here. I found this. She said that she sees Cayman as a woman who suffered terrible trauma when she was young. She lost her whole family during the period when there wasn't enough food. She was the one they decided would survive. So she comes with huge psychological baggage and feels very, very strongly in trying to save the planet for future children, for future generations. So that was her kind of psychological motivation going into this. A little bit similar to what we just talked about in that sense, as we may discuss further. But for a quick summary of the film, set in 2073 in a dystopian world in which the world's resources have rapidly depleted due to overpopulation. So those in charge implement the one-child law, meaning that parents can only have one child. Any more are sent to a cryosleep with the intention of having them wake up once they've gotten everything under control. So this is a problem for the Setman sisters, a group of 7 identical septuplets. They're all played by Noomi Rapace, and their grandfather, Terrence, played by Willem Dafoe, raises them in secret after their mother dies in childbirth and their father's out of the picture. So he develops a system for them where they live in the same apartment, but they're each named after a day of the week and are only allowed to go out in public on the day that corresponds to their name. And they always have to dress the same and essentially live the same life in order to keep up the ruse that they are just one person, who they name Karen. And one day, however, Monday goes missing, leading her sisters to investigate what happened to Monday. But their investigation ultimately leads to them getting caught by Cayman and her forces. Tuesday is captured and tortured, and their sisters must survive as Cayman and her security team hunt them down. So, a lot going on here, too, as well. Lauren, I believe this is a new one for both of us. So, what were your overall thoughts on what happened to Monday, on this concept, and on Glenn's performance?
Another good concept.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen films about the one child policy and overpopulation are very, very common, especially in like the 2000s and the 2010s.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of stuff about it, from nonfiction to fiction, read a lot about it. So I'm not unfamiliar when it comes to dramatizations about, overpopulation and a one child policy and how that is affecting people.
Right.
So I like that. I like that, foundational base. The execution of this film is interesting or a little weak. I find it's like a fun, just like a catcher movie, and that's kind of where my expectations hugely plummet. The idea of spontaneous identical septuplets is a jump. Twins I will get behind, triplets maybe, but 7 is a big number for humans.
Yeah.
It's not a mess of a movie. It's a fun movie. And it was like a time in the world where we wanted all the action and all the sci-fi, but it just gets very campy and very like B minus streaming movie of very
Mm.
easy, which kind of makes sense that this is like a Netflix original. I didn't know that like going into it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But in terms of the concept's really smart, actually. The concept is really interesting, being an identical and what that means for you. I've read a lot of stories about like identicals and multiple births during the one child policy back then. But
Mm.
execution is just less so, and which is kind of unfortunate because there's a good idea. And, I was a fan of Orphan Black, so the idea of like one person playing several is a fun concept for an actor, and it's kind of great to see their bones, and no hate to, the two actors because we have the children and then we have Naomi, but just not the best execution. And with Glenn's character, it's a fun, campy one. Her and the two characters that we're talking about, they're on the same side of the spectrum where they're doing the same thing. They want to save the world and do everything, but this girl is much more, cartoon evil.
Yeah.
And which is fun for her to play. Like she's good at it, and I love how she
Hmm.
did like that background. But this could have easily been someone just like clocking in for their work and clocking out. But
Very that.
it's cartoon, like laugh out loud, let me tell you my big plan. But it's a messy movie, which kind of stinks given the fact that I think its foundation is really strong.
I completely agree. This was far less effective for me compared to The Girl with All the Gifts, goes without saying, but this is one where, like, yeah, the concept is really cool, and I admire the difficulty there, probably was there in, like, filming this, because I'm
Uh-huh.
sure it was a pain in the ass, especially in those scenes with, like, the seven of them all together. I can't even imagine. But yeah, I think it is sort of inevitable, as you already mentioned, that this movie was coming out when Orphan Black was airing. So, like, the comparison is unavoidable. Obviously, the script predated the show coming out, but there was, yeah, already this show on the air with Tatiana Maslany as several identical people with different haircuts and personalities. Even, like, one of them was very, like, techie. And so, like, there's a lot
And
of.
had like the same outfit with the beanie and the glasses and
Exactly, exactly.
like
Right. So it's kind of tough to not think about that while watching it, because I also do think Tatiana Maslany is a bit
great.
more dynamic of an actress within the parameters of this kind of role or roles compared to Numi Rapace, who I do normally really like, but
Yeah,
I
this
think
was
she's,
a time where Numi was everywhere.
yeah,
They
really,
really
yeah.
wanted to make her something here in America, which is great. This is such a hard role for someone to do just
Yes.
logistically, and now you're going to add the stunts and you're going to add the second language. And what doesn't get me is that the actress who plays the children are British, and now we have French American like accent playing, which
Yeah. Not,
throws me a
not sure
little
what
bit.
happened there. Yeah.
But okay, and then we have
Yep.
Glenn, normal American, but like whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it,
Yeah.
and sure,
Sure.
but it's super duper hard. So I give
Yeah.
her a lot of credit, and she's great with
Yeah.
the action, and she's great with trying to find individualities within each character.
Yeah.
But the script is just basically like a manhunt, essentially, and just the girls trying to get each other out of it and trying
Right.
to. So the challenge for her is trying to find that through line, which is so hard when A, you're playing against yourself or playing against nobody, and when majority of your screen time and your lines are exposition and then just
Yes.
action.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. I don't fault her if I didn't feel as emotionally moved as maybe I wanted to be by her performances. But yeah, I think this is the kind of film where, like, if you really look at it for too long, as we are kind of doing, it starts to fall apart and be guilty of plot holes where things just don't really make logical sense. Starting with the fact that they're keeping up this ruse of being one identity and they have one salary because they work one job, and yet they are able to feed and sustain all seven of them for decades, it seems. Just not really buying that personally. Must be a really high paying job, I guess. But
It's a bank, that's all I know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the seven, like the fact that there's seven of them is what gets me, and I get it. It was just there to do the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like
yeah,
that's the whole concept. But
that's it.
two would have been fine. Three is good. Like I just don't get the
Yeah,
seven. And they all have like their perfect hair dyes and they all have their
of
individuality,
course.
which is good. I was much more interested in the Willem Dafoe section with the younger
Hmm.
version of them and seeing how it works and how the kids adjust to it
Yes.
or what their opinions are to it. Because our main character is Tuesday or is it Thursday? One of
Uh,
them.
I guess Thursday.
Thursday,
Eventually,
Thursday's
it's
our girl.
Thursday.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I knew it was a T. So like we're
yeah,
trying to follow her, which is it takes a second for the script to actually focus more on her.
yeah.
But I was more interested in how Thursday and all the girls as younger kids accept this life and try to, and he always
Right.
talks about I want you to still be individuals and see what you like. And I wanted to see them, try to get there. Like when does the tech one want to be techie? Like when does Thursday want to be more physical? When does one likes math and all of that, the sibling relationships and the dynamics, because we didn't get that. And the ending kind of hinders on the interpersonal relationships within the girls, and we
Yeah.
just don't get it. We just get them reacting to the atrocities of each
Mm,
other.
yeah. It's that's why I really did like certain scenes, like when one of them, I don't remember which one it was, sorry to say,
There's
but
a lot.
when they are kids and one of them like breaks one of their fingers a little bit, and then
Thursday.
Thursday. There you go. Right. And then, yeah, Willem Dafoe's like, well, now we have to break all of your fingers in the same place because you are one.
Hmm.
Like, that is very chilling, I think, and says a lot about any maybe resentments that would eventually come about, as we will see come back into play towards the end with what did happen Monday. So, yeah. And I think there are certain character choices even that don't make a whole lot of sense by the end either. I think even though that it's not made for Netflix, which is how this came out in the US, it does have that Netflix quality where it's like best not to think too much about it and just sort of let it wash over you passively, maybe phone in hand. Just enjoy the vibes, the action sequences, the concept, which again I think is cool, even if it is kind of riffing off of the Orphan Blacks and the Blade Runners and the Children of Men, and these things that the director has really actually cited as inspirations for him, or
Oh
even like the
yeah.
Paul
Like look at
Verhoeven
the
movies.
the
Yeah,
raining chase jumping scene. You're like, I've seen this
exactly.
before. Like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
okay. It still looks cool.
Yes, but I don't know if it really has like a strong enough visual identity to really distinguish itself beyond those references.
No, yeah, which is
Yeah.
what stinks because it is a strong concept. Like,
Yeah, it
what
is.
if you are a multiple, an identical one, which means you're lucky that you can hide. What does that mean in this world? And how can you stay afloat? And how can you cope? And how, as a person who's hiding and who's a person, like, what does that mean? Like, we have a lot of different iterations in history about people doing that as well, even in China during the one child policy. So that's
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, it's just executed very sloppily. We're using this foundation to make a high stakes action movie and like include like
Right.
a bounty, which stinks because there's so much more you can talk about, and they just
Exactly.
choose not to.
Yeah, that was my big issue. Is just like that fundamental choice to just make it a manhunt movie in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but with Glenn, she's certainly having fun here.
Yes.
She does have an accent, I think, but I can't really place it. I would call it vaguely European at times. Then it feels
It
American.
like
Then I
reminds me of Effie from the Hunger Games, where like you kind of
okay,
don't
there
know
we go.
what it is,
Yeah.
but like the capital kind of like welcome, like type
Yes,
of like
the
where
high
are you
register.
from? Yeah, like
Yes.
something upper.
Yeah, I mean, I was even feeling like an Imelda Staunton, Dolores Umbridge at times going
Yeah.
on. Yeah, a choice. But I also really like just her presentation too, which does have a little bit of that camping quality in the wig and the
The
pantsuits
outfits.
and everything. Yes. This is another thing that Glenn said in her production notes. I just am obsessed with how seriously she took this role. She said, if you look at women leaders around the world, they basically have this style of hair, short and this color. I guess it's easy to keep up. Kamen is not somebody who spends a lot of time thinking about how she looks. She cares about her image, but I don't think she would spend a lot of time shopping. If she could wear a uniform, she would. And I think that sort of does inform the story too, in a sense, because it's so much about losing your identity, and individuality. I guess it sort of makes sense for Kamen to represent that idea in like how she presents herself to the world. Even though I'm just kind of like, well, this is just like a fun campy role. I don't know if we need to be doing all that.
I
You know
love
what I
how she's
mean?
like again, there's no small parts, just small actors, and she's a
Exactly.
big actor. I love how she just
Yep.
always gives everything 110% no matter what. Yeah, and she sees that this woman does want people to like her. She is against, she's quote unquote to her saving the world, and she also wants to give herself all the power that the world
Hmm.
can offer her. And she prides herself on that, and she gets enjoyment from that, which is fascinating and fun and interesting, which is when she gets her villain sections, there is that like mwahaha cartoon villain stuff going on because she likes it. She likes catching people that are disobeying her and
Mm-hmm.
beating them too. I'd be like, you tried to mess with me, but I got you. Like I win.
Right. Yes.
Which
Cat and
is
mouse stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and it's fun to watch. You can disengage from it where like you understand that the girls are scared because she's menacing. Like there is this
Yeah.
scary quality to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really like that scene where like she's caught Tuesday, I think it is, towards the beginning of just the way she stares at her, and she has the blonde, like the Hillary Clinton haircut by this point, and her whole disposition is so menacing, and how she looks with this coldness, and she tells Tuesday all about how she knows, I know you're not an only child, and that she's surprised that like she and her sisters made it this long, and how if everyone was as cruel as her grandfather, the world would end tomorrow. I mean, she is just ruthless. And it's a bit of also like the Meryl Devil Wears Prada thing, too, of like not raising her voice all that much.
Hmm.
It's just that quiet, unnerving sort of calm in her composure that becomes kind of unnerving with the things that she's actually talking about with that calm voice.
Yeah, when she says that's what the last one said before she leaves,
Yes,
and you're just
exactly.
like, ooh, we're in
Damn.
trouble. Like you have
Mm-hmm.
nowhere else to go. She's excited about it because her whole life is just also telling people what to do, and she really does believe that this is the way to help humanity and save the world, and this is the way we're putting everything back to normalcy because it's working. Are people
Yeah.
suffering? Yeah. Is there still the rich and the poor? Yes, but are more people getting by? Yes, like
Yeah.
this is a bad way to do it, but this is working. There's a reason why the one child policy lasted as long as it did.
Mm-hmm.
So there is data and science and rationale for what she's doing.
Yeah.
She's just taken it a little too far, and she understands, the ethical dilemma of it, but she is able to move past it, be like, I'm doing what needs to be done, and I'm trying to make you happy. And if you're gonna hate someone, hate me. I don't care, but I am helping you in the long run.
Yeah, that compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is quite similar to the girl with all the gifts in that sense as well. Except in this case, she's not putting these children or, duplicates or whatever in cryosleep. She is incinerating them, as we come to find out, which is quite graphic, I must say. There are moments in this movie that I was like, this is like surprisingly violent. And
Yeah.
just like, okay, we're seeing like one of the sisters get shot in the head with like blood spurting out, and I'm like, this
Looking
is kind of
straight at
extreme.
us.
Yes, yes. I was like, damn, okay. This is just like when it goes beyond like the whole kind of like sheen of Netflix to be like, oh, damn, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot in this movie. Like the eye
Yeah.
was like I was like, whoa, guys. But
Yes, the detached eye. Oh my God. Yeah.
with the socket and everything, like we're in Kill Bill.
Right.
Yeah, this gets violent real fast, real easy, which is good, but I always say the thing for action is I need to care about who's in the fight more than
Yeah.
appreciate the fight itself. And since there are so many of them, and usually the fight takes out the girl, so we have a
Mm-hmm.
new one like each going in. I'm not as invested in it because I'm like, okay, who's Tuesday? Who's
Who's next?
Wednesday? Who's yeah? Like I'm like, we have blonde girl, we
Right.
got tech girl, we got all these other ones. They're just, I think there's too many of them in order to
Yeah.
go back to the no interpersonal relationships within the girls themselves,
Right.
where I don't care and I'm just like, oh, this poor girl's being put to the rudder because she's third in line. Like that's just the reason why she's out there.
Right.
But
Yeah.
technically, like on a technical element, yeah, they're impressive, but I just wish
Sure.
I cared about who was being hunted, where I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, poor girl.
Yeah. I mean, not to be like Cayman here, but like we could afford to get rid of some of these
There's
girls.
so many.
They can just not exist instead of having them be incinerated or whatever. Anyway, yeah, it's really chaotic the way we go from like Monday going missing to Tuesday is detained, and then there's the manhunt that leads to Sunday being killed in their apartment, and Wednesday going to investigate after that, and then just being shot Saturday is kind of like forced to sleep with this guy who they learn was actually going out with Monday because they kind of want to see if they can find obviously what happened to Monday, and having her sleep with him is the way to do that, I suppose. And like
We could just
linking
have
her.
dinner, but okay.
Right. Right, exactly. Because she's like having to link her bracelet with his bracelet. That's kind of this high tech thing to gain access to the child allocation surveillance. I'm a little fuzzy about how any of that works, to be honest, but it's
And
kind of
yeah, they
hand
didn't even
wavy.
need to use that. He just needed to say, I don't want to see you on other days.
Yeah.
Like that was the line
Right.
that we got it. Like we didn't need to be synced up, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. But that eventually leads to those agents going into that apartment and they kill Saturday.
Tack girls, but gone.
Right, exactly. A lot of this is a little confusing to me in retrospect because it doesn't make sense to me that this guy wouldn't notice how completely different Saturday is
The blonde
compared
one,
to
yes.
Monday.
Except
Yes,
for,
in
oh, you
every
have new
single way.
hair. And she's like,
Right.
I'm just trying it out.
Just trying a new
Who
thing.
are you,
And he's
by the
like,
way?
cool. Right. Yeah, I mean, you could joke like, men don't pay attention to these
It's a
things.
boy, yeah.
But yeah, still, he takes a lot of this in stride, I will say. Like her sudden new haircut and her not wanting to be choked during sex, despite Monday wanting that. It strains credulity a little bit here, but by this point, it's like, I'm just giving myself over to whatever crazy shit's going to happen next. So, you know, hard to get too upset about it, I suppose.
Yeah, you just need to turn your brain off. And then it gets even more
Yeah.
crazy after, in my opinion, where we find out like where Monday is and the motivations. And I'm just like, girl, what are you doing? It's just
I know. Well, we can speak to that actually, which is that Monday has made a deal with Cayman because Monday turns out is pregnant with twins and she wants both of them to live. And the way that she ensures that they live is to basically donate a bunch of money to Cayman's campaign because she, I guess, wants to be president now. And essentially, they would just make sure that the twins lived, and in the process of that, sold out all of her sisters.
which is a choice, which is
Yeah,
good, Insane. As a firstborn daughter, I don't claim this for Monday.
fair
It's
enough.
crazy. Like that scene is just it Glenn's having fun in that scene, being like, I got you, girl, like haha.
Mm-hmm.
But which is fun for her to be like the person of authority, kind of scolding the people that essentially scammed her and like got away with murder essentially, and
Yeah,
she's kind of fighting back towards it. But just as a viewer, I'm just like, I just don't understand because we don't have the pregnancy reveal yet. That's like the last thing that we
right.
learn. So we're
Yeah,
just like, you're just trying to get ahead in life and you're
that's
totally
what it
okay with
seems
like
like.
killing your sisters. And then we get like the confrontation with Thursday, and I'm like, this can't just be about you losing the tip of your finger. Like, this is like, it
I know.
cannot be like you're totally okay with like offing six of your family just
Yeah,
because of that. Like, there's got to be more to it, and or a boy is not worth this. Like, you're doing this for a guy,
right, right.
and so that's where like it loses me, and the confrontation is just like less so. But
Yeah,
again, you have to turn your brain off. We get the and just say like we're getting a fun bathroom fight and just enjoy it.
that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. We also get some fun, like Glenn in campaign mode as well at this fundraiser, where first it's outside of the fundraiser and then she gets the speech. But there's a scene where she's talking to Monday, I think, about how like we failed miserably as a species and like we masterminded our own execution and all these different things. And that's where we get all that revelation. But it is a wild reveal that leads to the actual speech, which is very cheerful in a sense, but firm in being like, in a perfect world, every child has the right to live. And that's why I'm running for office, so I can reform the law. And how anyone who wants to bring a child into this world must be able to prove financial stability and be able to guarantee the emotional and physical well being of that child. I did also laugh when she said, there may even be room for siblings if the
Like,
data measures
ooh.
up. Yes.
You're
So
like, this
goofy.
woman is so ruled by numbers, and like you either fit
Yes.
the criteria or you don't fit the criteria.
Or
There's
going into the incinerator.
gone. Like, not needed,
Yep.
not worth it. Because,
Yep.
yeah, I was watching the movie and I was like, there's no way this Earth has enough energy for all of these, like, children to be, like, asleep. Like, that's another situation that we don't know.
Exactly.
And then when I saw
Yeah.
them get burned, I'm like, okay, that, there we go. Like,
No.
that fixes that.
Right.
But, yeah, I love it's again, it's very cartoon evil where like I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna rule everything. I'm gonna dictate, who gets the children, who doesn't get the children, and you see how this is bad, like like where this is heading.
Yeah.
But for her, she's just like I'm gonna control and make sure I'm gonna get my utopia,
Yeah.
and you're all gonna like it, and you're gonna love me for it, and it'll just feast before my fingers,
Yeah.
and
Delicious.
it is delicious.
And I mean, I do love the drama of when I think this is when Adrian has hacked the system at this little donor fundraiser to show all of these donors the footage that they secretly took of the incinerations happening of these poor children. And the way Glenn just like faints
Right
also
out
made
of
me
a soap
laugh.
opera. It was great.
Very, very, very drama. I love that. And she just says over and over to these donors, they didn't suffer, they didn't suffer, all these things. And then I think it gets a little silly because she notices in the crowd, I think it's Thursday, who she has obviously had this feud with at this point, but she goes to basically choke her
Yeah,
at this
she's trying to
fundraiser.
fight her after like,
Yeah, which I'm like, this is getting very silly.
like who do you think you are, honey?
Yeah, exactly. So in the end, Monday does end up dying, but yes, tells her sister Thursday, the last remaining one, really, that she did all this to save them, to allow them both to live, and so she made like this deal with the devil to protect them in exchange for the money. So, which does make things a tiny bit better, but it also made me feel like
There's
we could have
other
handled this a little
ways. We could
better.
have talked
Exactly.
about it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the way she's early enough in her pregnancy where none of her sisters noticed, but yeah, far enough that we can harvest them and
Right.
put them
Good
in
point.
like an incubator type situation.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
they're
True.
fine. It's just like no one knew she was pregnant, like not even the guy.
Yep. Yep.
So like they all lived happily ever after, I guess, and we forgive
Yeah.
her. I
Yeah.
I hold a little bit more grudges if like five of my
I do too.
siblings died.
Yeah.
Um
I'd say so. Mm-hmm.
and my or if my like girlfriend was lying to me and then she puts on this like mass murder of her family and now
Yeah.
I like good for them for forgiving. That's a wonderful thing. It takes a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more out of me, but
I'd say so.
that's okay, I guess.
That's probably true of most people. But yeah, it also made me think like if maybe we actually did see Monday a little bit more throughout the story, and like we even knew ahead of time that she made that deal. And we, as an audience, are sort of waiting for her sisters to realize she sold them out. Maybe we could have had some scenes of Monday kind of like reckoning with her decision, even. That could have been interesting. But
Yeah.
alas.
That is a fun perspective that sci-fi
Yeah.
never does. Like they never take the like the horror element of it. They always like the surprise. Like the
Yeah.
big one is always Passengers again with Jennifer Lawrence. It would be so much more effective if we were with her and not with Chris Pratt. So it's like
Yeah.
always that similar thing where we want to know more and we want to be on the side of the people who are getting hurt. So like we understand what's going on and not so in the dark,
Right.
and that would have been good here to see her, figure it out because they give us her reason in like the last 3 minutes of the movie and then it wraps
Yeah.
up and we're just like,
Hmm.
what? So if we knew like what she was fighting for and why she
Exactly.
didn't want to say anything, that would have been much more effective. And if the guy was in on it, or if he didn't know, or his situation, like your girlfriend is not only pregnant, is not only committing murder, but is a multiple. She's doing illegal things.
Pick
How
a
do you feel
struggle.
about it? Um, Just questions, but that would have been more effective. I will say I liked Glenn at the end when she is on trial and she's like, I could have saved the world and now
Yeah.
this will never happen and it's because of you. What you're doing right now is going to cause irreparable damage.
Yeah.
And she's not that she's right, but she's not wrong. Like there is still a mass problem in this world, and even though ethically what she's doing is bad, she's like asking people like, "Do you have another option? Do you have an idea?"
Mm-hmm.
Like I was the
Yeah.
person with the balls to come up with something that was working,
Yeah. And
and
I'm
now
not,
you're
I don't,
punishing me for it, and now we're gonna go
yeah,
back to the status quo where the world's gonna die. And so
exactly.
I love how blunt she is about that.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. She makes a point.
Hmm.
I don't love how she went about it, but she made her point.
She's like, I tried. Do you want to step up?
Yeah. If you have a better idea, by
Be
all
my guest.
means. Right. Yeah. But she is yet another Glenn character arrested. It happens, Someone has to be the bad guy,
Someone's
but
gotta fall.
you know, in the grand tradition of the Cruella de Villes and such, she has to be punished. But it's okay. She had fun. I think she had fun with the character. She did a lot of research into this, clearly, as I was saying with her quotes. But that's what happened on Monday. A very silly movie that
Silly
if you want to
movie.
just turn it on and turn your brain off, enjoy Glenn being silly, at least.
She's having fun.
Yeah.
Can't argue against that.
Yeah. Anything else before we get to the release of these films?
Um, the fact that Thursday kept Karen after hating it, that was funny.
That's true.
Just like
Yeah.
some except she's like, I hate this
She came to
person. I hate
embrace
this
it.
person. Who do you want to be?
Yeah.
I guess Karen.
Yeah.
What? But
Sure. To honor the
okay, yeah,
siblings, I
just
guess. I
support
don't know.
her. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, we learned to love her.
Beautiful. We
Uh,
learned to love Karen. Yes. Let's talk about the release of The Girl with All the Gifts first. So, it toured a bunch of festivals in 2016, including Locarno and Toronto. It was released in Europe in September of that year, premiered in the US at Fantastic Fest. It then had a bit of an odd release in the US because it was released online on VOD on January 26, 2017, and then it got a limited theatrical release on February 24th. I'm not entirely sure what the thinking was behind that, but regardless, reviews were mostly positive with praise for the performances and the thematic depth of it, the craft. It was very well liked and even got some awards love from British organizations. It got 4 nominations at the British Independent Film Awards, with producer Camille Gatton winning the award for Breakthrough Producer. Gemma Arterton and Senia Naunua were also nominated. Would have loved to see a nomination for Glenn there. Just saying. She contributed a lot to that film. But
she was part of the group.
yeah, and it got a BAFTA nomination as well for Outstanding Debut by a British Writer, Director, or Producer. It also even won the Golden Trailer Award for Best Foreign Thriller Trailer. So, very specific. But yeah, anyway, pretty acclaimed. But I think because of the odd release strategy, it wasn't even eligible for Oscars. But yeah, why do we think the film was received so positively, especially with how, critics aren't always kind to this particular
No.
genre, but they were
Um,
very kind to this one.
because it's a different idea.
Mm-hmm.
I wish was like The Last of Us like 10 years old or something. But so I want to say it predates this. I could totally be wrong. But we were in like Walking Dead era, but and the idea of a different type of zombie, this was interesting.
Yeah.
And the idea of an in-between. And I think there's a good stuff can happen when you're creating two things at the same time, like the fact that we're doing the book and making the adaptation in parallel time periods where it's the same creative team, so they know the story that they want to do. And as you said in the beginning, the world building was good, and it's for a first film, a first idea, first time
Yeah.
in the game. I'm gonna call it a success. So I
Yeah.
think the questions and the character dynamics that they're using to ask those questions are very effective, where it does reignite what could have been a tired subgenre.
Yeah, that's true. And also, just to fact check, The Last of Us first video game was released in 2013.
Okay, never mind.
So, I mean, concurrently were
Well,
being
but
developed.
yeah,
Yeah. But
but like a time
anyway,
of such overpopulation when it comes to zombies, like,
exactly. Yeah.
so it's fun to get something new.
Right, right. But I think I agree with all the critics too who found it to be a very fresh take on the genre and found the performances very credible and very humanistic. I think it is that focus on character, making it more of a character driven story than just plot that really did it for me. So, yeah, I think that's what it was. Characters first.
Yeah, and it's a good one. And that's what's like tricky about like international genres, like these tiny movies. Like this is a British film.
Yeah,
So to get international rights is a whole other ball game.
true.
And to see it get international, like the fact that it got to America is a win of itself, like that's great. So the fact that it could be eligible for stuff. And like, let's be honest, is an indie zombie movie
I know.
gonna make it to the Oscars?
No.
No, but that's like not the part, that's not the point of the film. The BAFTA stuff is great and that it got acclaim like in home, which is
Hmm.
awesome. But that's just not every film has to do that or get there. So the win for here is that it came here and
Yeah.
people have seen it here, which is again for a debut that is an indie British genre zombie movie. Great.
Yeah, I would take that as a win for all involved,
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah. So then with what happened on Monday, just like with The Girl with All the Gifts, it premiered at the Locarno Film Festival as well, and the rights were then bought by Netflix, and they released it on August 18th, 2017. But it got a theatrical release through most of Europe, at least. Reviews were not as positive as The Girl with All the Gifts, much more mixed. There was criticism for the plot holes and the sort of mindless action quality of it, but still praise for Numi Rapace's performance and for the premise itself. And, did not get any awards nominations. But why was the response here maybe a little less positive?
It's a less perfect movie.
It's just not as good.
It's not as good. And you really have to give it to Numi. Like you're playing seven people who's playing one person, and then
Yeah,
again you're acting against nothing, which like I can only imagine, how frustrating or difficult that must be.
yeah,
We're adding the language again.
right.
So you really got to give it to her for working this, like the amount of time she's on sets and differentiating, character and trying to differentiate and do all of that stuff. So I give everything to her. That
Totally.
never she is innocent in here,
Yes.
but it's just a clunky movie, like in the script. Like that's just what it is, which stinks because the concept is pretty cool. If you like this idea, I will divert back to Orphan Black or other types of stuff of that nature.
Yeah.
But less received because it's just less well made and it just is not here as in opposed to Girl with All the Gifts, it's just not made for story or character. That's not the reason this
No.
movie exists.
Yeah, I agree. I think the gimmick of her playing the seven characters and the concept itself are cool, but I don't know if the film truly does enough with that, weirdly enough, to make it really rise above just feeling like a standard sort of streaming movie, or I guess what would have been at the time perhaps something like a Redbox movie, something of
Yeah.
that nature, of just the sort of manhunt quality of it all and sort of B movie feeling at times. So, yeah.
Yeah, the concept of this movie is can we film one person playing seven?
Yeah.
Like, can we do
That's
that?
that's the big goal.
That's why we're here.
More than even just trying to make like this intelligent story
Hmm.
per se. So, yeah, that all makes sense. But let's get to our last segment where we're going to rate Glenn's performances on a very specific scale. So, starting with The Girl with All the Gifts, thinking about that and where that sits in her career, would you say she is ready for her close up, which is to say one of her best performances? Is it low Glenergy, not one of your favorites? Is it close but no cigar, somewhere in the middle? Or we now have our secret categories of serving in silence, which is to say delivering a great supporting performance, or glenescent, meaning she is good but the project not so much. What do you
I
think?
think she's serving in silence.
Okay.
Like, it's a good part, and she's
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of good stuff. And I think the movie's good. Like, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Again, I'd recommend it to people. And what she's doing in it is making it interesting. I think she's the most fleshed out supporting character in that film,
Easily.
which it should have been Helen, but it just wasn't. Like that's
Yeah.
just how it worked out. Part of it maybe is just Glenn's doing more work than Gemma, but I think it's the script is just so much more on Glenn's character, where she's given so much more to do, and you're so interested in the psychology of her.
Yeah.
So she's one of the highlights of the film, honestly. So from the
Love it.
concept in her,
Love it. Yeah.
yeah.
I almost said Serving in Silence, but for me, I decided to go even higher with this. And I would say she is close, but no cigar, trending
Okay.
towards ready for her close up. I think this is really good work from Glenn. She shows her range, she shows the power of a close up, she fills in the gaps of her character, and it is kind of shocking to me like what she's able to make work in terms of the physicality, which she has rarely done at that point, like I said, in terms of the action and the violence, and also just kind of making you believe this world with the things that she is saying as she kind of talks about like the next evolutionary stage and this, that, and the other thing, where it's just like, yeah, I fully believe you, you know?
Yeah. Like as I said, it's Melanie and then I think it's her.
Yeah, exactly.
Like those are what's going on here,
That's why I
which
think she's almost beyond supporting in some
yeah,
regard, you know?
maybe
So,
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, really good work. Highly recommend people watch that. But what about for What Happened to Monday?
Oh,
Very curious what you'll say
Monday.
about this one. Oh, Monday.
Oh, Monday. What are we gonna do with you? Um, she's Glennisant, I would say. Like she's
Okay,
doing the work that she was hired to do.
sure.
She's clocking in, she's doing her character work, she's making it fun, she's clocking out. Whatever else is happening is not her fault. So I'm gonna say that right now. Like she's doing good. Like that's the reason she was hired, and she's gonna do it. And she's doing her back work, and she's prepping, and whatever, however it's edited, however it is produced, that is not on her.
Not her business.
Not
Yeah.
on her.
Nope. I agree. I think she is totally Glennisant here. I still think the accent's a little weird at times, but she's
Who
doing her
knows
own
where
thing.
we are in this
It's
movie?
fine. No, it's fine. Yeah, it's 2073. Maybe that's just how people talk. But
Maybe.
yeah, she's just doing her thing. She's having fun. She's doing more research than the role requires, but that is just her style. She is an A student. So what can you expect?
She did her homework.
Yeah, she commits and she's having fun. But definitely, like I said, of the two we talked about today, would vastly recommend Girl Without the Gifts. So
Yeah.
yeah. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me on this little sci-fi detour in Glenn's career.
Oh, I love it. No,
Yeah.
thank you for having me. I love being your sci-fi girl and your genre girl. And
Yes.
they're fun. See, as what I said in our other show, there could be a lot of dents, but you never know what you're gonna find sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's
Which
right.
are which is the fun of the genre.
Exactly. Little diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where can people find more of you on the internet?
You guys can find me on the Twitter at Lauren LaMango and Letterbox at Lauren LaMagna, and all of my writing would be a next best picture.
Highly recommend following Lauren. Always love that you say the Twitter. Always
The
cracks me
Twitter,
up.
yeah.
It's so great. Yes.
Thank you.
Um,
I did it like
thank-
once and I was like, ooh, I gotta stick with it.
it's you committed to the bit and it still works.
Here.
Yes. Thank you all so much for listening. You could find me at Kevin_Jacobsen on the Twitter and Instagram. Just Kevin Jacobsen, no underscore on the Blue Sky. You can also listen to my Oscar themed podcast, And the Runner Up Is, for coverage of every single Best Actress race, including one here with Lauren. Highly recommend. But that's And the Runner Up Is on all platforms. I should say two. I forgot we did two. Anyway, you can go to patreon.com/And the Runner Up Is for early access to these episodes and bonus episodes of And the Runner Up Is, such as my Oh Woman Robbed series, which I recently did an episode with Lauren here as well.
Those are fun. I love them.
Yes, thank you. Talking Linda Hamilton and Charlize Theron. Loved that episode. And to keep up with the world according to Glenn on social, follow the Glenn Pod. Rate, review, and follow on all platforms. And with that, I will bid you all adieu.